What if the most beautiful places on Earth were also the ones most likely to kill you? Across the planet, narrow trails cling to cliffs hundreds of feet above the ground. Calm rivers suddenly turn into violent rapids. Active volcanoes spill glowing lava, while boiling mud and toxic gases rise from beneath the surface. These places are breathtaking, but nature shows no mercy to anyone who makes a mistake. And yet, people continue to climb higher, venture closer, and risk everything just to experience them. Welcome to a journey through some of the world's most beautiful and most dangerous places, where fear is often part of the adventure. To Portugal. This is one of the toughest walking on clouds routes in Europe. The trail sits right between the two highest peaks on Madeira Island, running along ridges over 5,900 feet, where volcanic cliffs shoot straight up into thin air. Thin steel cables are the only thing standing between hikers and the deep valleys down below. The route is only about 4 miles long, but the massive elevation changes and steep rock steps coming one after another can drain your energy real fast. In a lot of spots, the trail narrows down into a wet path and slowly fades into the thick fog. When the fog rolls in, a path ahead starts to disappear and the valleys below it completely swallowed up in the thick white mist. People still show up. They leave the starting point while it is still pitch dark out, feeling their way along the foggy ridges to make their way toward Pico Ruivo. The payoff for every step right on the edge of the cliff is watching the sunrise light up the roof of Madeira Island. Via Ferrata, Metal Ladder, China. Via Ferrata, on the cliffs of King Mountain, in a 551 feet long metal ladder, stretches diagonally across thin air. It connects two sheer rock faces right in the middle of the clouds. The second you step on that first rung, the scenery behind you starts to fade away, while the deep valley opens up right under every gap in the ladder. The ladder shakes with every step you take. The higher you climb, the tinier you feel, surrounded by the giant rocks of Jianggeorgi. In the thick fog, the ladder just looks like a few metal bars hanging out in the middle of nowhere, making every step feel like you are stepping right into thin air. On this route, just one tiny mistake or a quick moment of panic can put you in serious danger, because turning back is pretty much impossible. Dolomites, Italy. Would you dare to take off on a paraglider from a mountain peak over 10,000 feet high, where just one step is enough to send you straight into thin air? Up in the Dolomites in northern Italy, that trip kicks off on iron ladders, pins straight into the rock face. Climbers clip their safety harnesses onto steel cables, taking it step by step across narrow ridges and suspension bridges dangling right over the abyss. On one side, you have a sheer, cold, hard rock wall right under your boots. The cliff drops straight down the side of the mountain, where the winding road at the bottom shrinks down to just tiny lines. But even when you make it to the top, the challenge is not over yet. Some folks do not choose to head back down the way they came. They lay out their gliders on the mountainside, wait for the right breeze, and then run straight for the edge to launch themselves into thin air. If it were you, do you think you would be calm enough to take that final step? Volcano, Indonesia. It is one of the most active volcanoes in the world, erupting non-stop since 1933. From its massive crater underground, pressure keeps pushing columns of black ash and volcanic gas straight up into the sky. Mixed in with the grey smoke are chunks of red-hot lava dropping down and covering the mountainside in a deadly shade of grey. Yet, right where people should be turning around, a bunch of tourists still get super close to the edge of the crater just to hunt down a one-of-a-kind selfie. When these photos went viral in late 2025, they caught a ton of heat for having zero regard for their own lives. The Indonesian government immediately rolled out a ban, tossing these tourists on a blacklist and kicking them out of national parks for good. Class V, Rapids Terminator Section. Do not let the amazing looks of the river fool you, because right past the calm sections are some crazy Class 5 rapids. The water gets squeezed right through tight rocky canyons at the stretch of the river called Terminator. White water walls can toss and flip a whole raft in just a matter of seconds. If someone falls in, they will get dragged through whirlpools, slammed into rocks, or sucked down into hidden crevices at the bottom of the river, out in this spot that is pretty much cut off from the rest of the world. Rescue operations become extremely tough. High alpine shelter near a glacier. Making it up to the city in the middle of the Alps has never been a trip for rookies. From the valley, you have to climb over 4,000 feet, grabbing on to steep rock faces and getting right up next to the Frey-Booz Glacier. At the end of that route is a red and white shelter pod sticking out of the mountainside, looking like the hull of a ship that just got stuck in the ice. Inside, there is only enough room for 12 people. If they get there too late and the beds are all taken, they might have to head back down right when the strong winds and snow start covering up the trail from the round window. The whole valley sits way down below, making it feel like the room is floating right in the middle of the sky. Upper, even simple needs turn into a challenge. There are no indoor bathrooms here, which means you have to step outside in freezing temps, stand on an exposed mountainside, and take ice-cold winds whipping right at you. But to take care of the most basic business, hard fought India, sitting dangerously high at over 4,000 feet in the middle of Maharashtra. Harihar Fort, Maharashtra, India. Harihar Fort was built back in the Yadava period to keep an eye on the trade route through the Gondagat Pass. Narrow steps are carved straight into the cliff, standing up like a stone ladder hanging in the sky. Climbers have to grip their hands into tiny holes, hauling their bodies up step by step. When rain coats the rocks, every single step can turn into a slip, even though just one slip could end the whole trip. Folks still had to Harihar Fort to conquer the very trail that made this place a legend. Trolltunga, Norway. Norway. Jutting out from the mountainside at almost 3,900 feet up, Trolltunga looks like a giant rock tongue dangling right over Lake Ringadalsvatnet. Down below is a drop of nearly 2,300 feet, while the entire rock edge has absolutely no guardrails. To step foot on this rock outcrop, you have to knock out a round-trip hike of about 17 miles. You cross rocky slopes and high mountain areas where the weather changes real fast. Rain can make the ground super slippery, fog can block your view of the trail, and strong gusts of wind from the valley can just blast upwards out of nowhere, while you are standing right on the edge. Even so, tens of thousands of people still make their way to Trolltunga every year, stepping right up to the edge and throwing their arms out over the crazy drop out there in the Norwegian mountains. Some people even turn that dangerous spot into a stage for a marriage proposal that is both romantic and enough to make anybody watching hold their breath. The Hanging Temple, China. Building. Something at the top of a cliff is scary enough, but what if it was hanging halfway up the side of a mountain? Over at Mount Heng, in Shanxi province, the Hanging Temple clings to a rock face that is practically straight up more than 200 feet above the valley. This wooden temple has been around for about 1,500 years. It just got suspended in mid-air and forgotten by time. From down below, the whole structure looks like it is only being held up by a few skinny wooden pillars. The real frame is actually hidden deep inside the mountain, where crossbeams are hammered right into the rock to turn the cliff itself into the foundation. But even with those in place, you really should not risk leaning out over the railing. Sitting nearly 250 feet off the ground, it is pretty unbelievable that this place is still hanging solid on the cliff. After more than 1,500 years, La Jumal Lighthouse, Brittany, France. France. Out in the sea, off the coast of France, La Jumal stands on a tiny little rock, looking like it was nailed down by people in a place it should never even exist. Building it was so hard that in the first year, workers could only step foot on the rock 17 times, putting in a total of just 52 working hours. But the real danger only kicked off once. The light was actually turned on during massive storms. Waves slam right into the side of the tower, completely covering the windows and making the whole thing shake like it is about to get ripped right off the rock. When the sea gets angry, turns into a prison right out in the middle of the ocean. No boats can dock, no rescue teams can get near it. Back in 1989, the lighthouse keeper, Theodore Malgorn, had just stepped out the door when a massive wall of water came rushing at him. He managed to step back inside right before the wave crashed down. If he had been just a few seconds slower, it could have turned him into a part of the sea. Mount Everest, Nepal. Do not mix up Everest with your everyday mountain climb from the Nepal side. The trip to the 30,000 feet peak starts with weeks of acclimatize, hauling gear, and getting through the Khumbu icefall, an ice maze that is always shifting right under your feet. Right here, climbers have to walk across deep cracks on flimsy metal ladders, while giant ice towers could collapse on them at any second. Higher you go, the thinner the air gets, and your body just loses its ability to recover. Above 29,000 feet is the death zone, where every breath feels short, your legs get heavier, and even the smallest choices can turn into a matter of life or death. Even with all that, people still push on. Some are chasing the dream of standing on top of the world, and the Sherpas come back season after season, carrying ropes, oxygen, and the hopes of the entire climbing crew right on their shoulders. Mount Bromo, Indonesia. To the Tengger people, Mount Bromo is not just a mountain. It is a place where the gods are still breathing right under the ground. Every year when the festival kicks off, thousands of people cross the sea of sand in the dark, bringing along rice, veggies, cash, and livestock right in front of them. The 7,700 feet high crater still churns out sulfur smoke, looking like a door opening straight into the heart of the earth. They get right up to the edge, then toss their offerings down into the roaring pit below, praying for good rain, solid harvests, and protection for their whole community. Over at Bromo, faith does not live inside stone walls. It stands right on the edge of a living volcano, where people are willing to push past their fears just to keep a promise to their ancestors. Darvaza, gas crater, Turkmenistan. Darvaza gas crater, Turkmenistan. This burning crater, right in the middle of the desert, is known as the Gates of Hell. According to the story you hear the most, this spot was once mistaken for an oil field, but down underneath it was actually a massive pocket of natural gas. When the drilling rig caved in, the ground opened up into a deep crater almost 230 feet wide. To stop the toxic gas from spreading out to the surrounding area, engineers decided to set it on fire, figuring the gas down there would burn out pretty quick. But that fire has been burning ever since 1971. The heat from it makes the air right above the crater insanely hot and muggy, while methane just keeps leaking out of the ground. If you just fall in here, your chances of making it out alive are pretty much zero. Turkmenistan is currently looking for ways to put out Darvaza, both to cut down on environmental risks and to collect the gas that is just being burned up for nothing. Zhangjiajie, Grand Canyon Glass Bridge, China. China. Stretching across a deep canyon in Zhangjiajie, this glass bridge actually held two records at the same time. When it opened up in 2016, the highest and the longest glass-bottomed bridge in the world. The whole thing runs about 1,500 feet, linking two cliffs at almost 1,000 feet right above the bottom of the gorge. A clear glass panels let you look straight down into the crazy deep drop right beneath your feet. Feels like putting your body on a thin layer of air, where your brain knows the bridge is totally safe, but your survival instinct keeps screaming at you to turn back around. On top of that, this spot later became the home to the highest commercial bungee jump platform in the world. Margarita Hut, Italy, sitting up on Punta Peak at 15,000 feet high and holding the record as the highest building in Europe. A part of the building sticks right out from the mountain, making it look like it is hanging out over the cliff, right between the white clouds and the glaciers of the Alps. To get here, you have to cross giant glaciers and carefully dodge deep cracks that are covered up by the snow. All the food and supplies are flown in by helicopter, which makes even a hot meal a pretty rare thing up here in the thin air and brutal cold. The outside of the building is coated in a metal shell, helping to guide electricity around the structure whenever lightning strikes. This place also doubles as a research station, where doctors keep an eye on how the human body reacts when it is pushed to the limits of high altitudes. Huangtengxia Tianmen Skywalk, China. Reaching out from the side of Huangteng Gorge in Guangdong Province, China, the Huangtengxia Tianmen Skywalk dangles almost 1,600 feet above the valley. The mostly clear glass totally wipes away any sense of the ground, making every footstep feel like you are stepping straight onto nothing at all. The further you walk out to the outer ring, the further the cliff fades behind you, leaving you out there with just the wind, the altitude, and a massive drop opening up right under your feet. Right below the walkway, a man-made waterfall system dumps water straight into the gorge, with the sound of the water echoing off the rocks, making the whole vibe even more intense. Mountain mist, mixed with water spray from the falls, coats the glass, making the area near the edge of the bridge pretty slippery. Ice Cave, Iceland. Down in southern Iceland, two forces that you would think could never exist together are locked tight into each other. Up top, you got freezing blue ice blocks that are always shifting and melting down. Below is Katla, one of the most powerful volcano systems in Iceland, where heat and magma are still quietly doing their thing, right on the border of fire and ice. Melted water has carved out tunnels, completely covered in black ash streaks from past eruptions. And that is exactly what makes Katla so awesome. People walk in here not just to check out an ice cave, but to stand right between two opposing forces that are shaping Iceland together. Mount Etna, Italy. It is one of the most active volcanoes in Europe. On the island of Sicily, Mount Etna shoots up over 11,000 feet, a volcano that has been forming for hundreds of thousands of years but has never really gone to sleep. Smoke still pours out of the crater, and glowing red lava still flows across the black, rocky slopes. The danger on Etna is not just in the rivers of fire that you can see. Hot rocks can get blasted out of the crater, thick ash can suddenly cover the trail, and the weak ground under your feet could just collapse after so many eruptions. Back in 2017, when the lava hit the snow, a steam explosion ended up injuring a bunch of people in just a matter of seconds. Geothermal area, northern Iceland. Sitting right on top of a geothermal system that is still going crazy underneath northern Iceland. Rainwater seeps deep down through the cracks, hits rock layers, getting cooked by magma, and then turns into high-pressure steam. When it runs out of places to go, it blasts right back up to the surface, hissing through the vents like the breath of some giant monster buried underground. Down in the lower spots, clay minerals and hot water mix into thick mud pools. Bubbles slowly swells up, yet super tight, and then pops open, keeping the surface boiling and moving non-stop. Sulfur gas leaks out, sticks to the dirt and rocks, and dyes the whole field in weird layers of red, yellow, and white. Hukou Waterfall, China. Welcome to Hukou Waterfall, where the yellow river that is hundreds of feet wide suddenly gets crammed into a rocky gap only a few dozen feet across, right before it plunges down into a gorge almost 100 feet deep. Millions of tons of muddy yellow water churn wildly, slamming straight into the rock layers and blasting up into a thick mist of mud and silt. The mist completely covers the walkways, keeping the rocks around the falls wet, cold, and super slippery all the time. Just one wrong step outside the safe zone, and a person could get dragged into a whirlpool with pretty much no way out. The roar of the waterfall echoes through the canyon, making the ground right under. Tourists' feet feel like it is shaking. After massive rains upstream, the flow can just surge, turning this place into a flood that is practically impossible to control. But people still packed the observation decks, getting right up to the railings just to watch the yellow river get swallowed up by the rocks. Because over at Hukou, the more dangerous it looks, the harder it is to stay away. See a mountain? Steep staircase. China. Steep mountain staircase. China. When you step foot on a mountain, having strong legs is not a guarantee that you will make it to the top. What really settles it is whether you got the guts to keep climbing up 99 rock steps, pitched straight up in the middle of a red cliff. Every step is narrow, forcing you to put your feet down perfectly while grabbing onto the handrails and chains on the side for dear life. The higher you go, the wider the empty space behind you gets. It is that exact feeling of standing right in the middle of rocks, wind, and a crazy drop that keeps people climbing up. They show up to test their fears. Reach Semi-Fortress and check out all of Danxia glowing red under the sunset. Tongi Special Train, Bangladesh. Every time the Bishwa Ijtema happens in Tongi, right outside of Dhaka, these special trains turn into a crazy part of the second biggest Islamic gathering in the world. After the final prayer, thousands of worshippers all try to head back home, packing every single train car super fast. Once there is no room left inside, they climb up on the roof, hang around the doors, and even sit right on the engine. The train pulls out of the station, looking like a giant block of people barreling down the tracks. No handrails, no safety ropes, just one slam on the brakes. A tight curve or a low bridge beam could turn the trip home into a total disaster. But caught between a sea of people behind them and their hometowns ahead, a lot of worshippers still gamble their lives, turning a religious trip into one of the wildest railway scenes in all of Bangladesh.